This president mocked the Bush tax cuts, saying they reflected a tired and cynical philosophy. That was actually until he actually acted to extend those same Bush tax cuts. This president says he's for energy independence in America, but then he blocks the Keystone Pipeline. He limits offshore drilling in my state. He tries to put the coal industry out of business. And right here in Colorado and elsewhere, he withdraws oil and gas leases on public lands. This president condemns earmarks, but then he signed a bill with thousands of earmarks in them. This president said he was going to close Gitmo, but then he actually kept it open. This president attacked John McCain for proposing a tax on Cadillac health insurance plans, then he passed a bill that included that same tax. This president attacked then Senator Hillary Clinton for proposing to mandate health insurance, but then he passed a law that included that same mandate. This president that said that lobbyists wouldn't find a job in his White House, but then they did. This president attacks Republicans as elitists, but he's a Harvard lawyer who's probably played more golf as president than Phil Mickelson has in these last 4 years. This president attacks Republicans for proposing cuts in Medicare, and yet he has now cut over $700 billion in Medicare to pay for his own new government program. These are just 10 examples of this president saying one thing and doing just the opposite. I could certainly provide many more examples, but I think you get the point by now. You know, to be clear, you may agree with some of those positions. You may disagree with what he says or what he does, but we can't agree about this. There's no correlation between what the president says and what this president actually does. And to my way of thinking, that's a problem. That's a pretty fundamental problem. At a bare minimum, we should have the confidence that our president, whether you like him or not, whether you agree with him or not, actually will be a man of his word. And maybe we're also cynical. You just say, well, that's just politics. They all just say one thing and do another. It is. But it's not presidential. The bottom line is that President Obama is doing the exact opposite of not only what we're doing in Louisiana, but what other conservative governors are doing across this great country of ours. And I want to talk to you a little bit about those reforms. I want to tell you, conservative principles actually work. And those are the principles we need to see applied in Washington, D.C. You see, every governor and any president will face one fundamental question when faced with these kinds of tough economic times. And that question is this: do you make the tough decisions in government, or do you shift those tough decisions to the people, the families, and businesses who are already struggling to pay their bills? When I was elected in Louisiana, I made a commitment to the people of Louisiana that we were going to change our state. For 25 years, we were the only state in the South where more people had left our state rather than moving into Louisiana. And I said, we have got to change that so our sons and daughters come home to pursue the American dream. Now, we started by saying this. We had a special session on ethics. Now, why did we start there? Well, let's be honest. That's right. It's Louisiana. Let's be honest. We've had our history of colorful characters. We had 3 insurance commissioners in a row that went to federal prison. One of my predecessors was in federal prison when I took my oath of office. We had a congressman who was caught with $90,000 in his freezer, given a new definition of cold cash in Washington, D.C. And the list goes on and on. Everybody had their favorite joke about Louisiana. The problem is the jokes weren't funny anymore. LSU did a survey. They said the number one, tied for first place, number one thing we could do to attract investment, create jobs, was to crack down on corruption. As long as who you know is more important than what you know, people did not want to invest in our state. We had a special session on ethics, passed one of the country's toughest ethics laws. As an example, went from 44th worst, according to the Center for Public Integrity for Legislative Disclosure, to number 1 in the entire country. Thanks for those laws. We didn't stop there. We had a second special session to get rid of some taxes. Taxes on businesses when they borrow money, when they buy new equipment, when they expand. Later that year, we signed the largest income tax cut in our state's history. Now, why is this important? Remember, I told you every governor and every president faces one fundamental choice. I made a commitment to the people of Louisiana. It says, as long as I'm governor, we are not raising taxes on our people. We're going to make the tough choices in government rather than shifting that burden to our people. For me, it's pretty simple when it comes to taxes. I've got 2 basic thoughts on taxes. If you want to encourage an activity, don't tax it. If you want to discourage an activity, tax it. And then secondly, as long as I'm governor, we're not raising taxes, period. That's all you need to know about me and taxes. Now, we've made some tough choices. We've cut our state budget by 26%. We've actually cut the number of government positions, government jobs by 16,000. We've got fewer government employees than we've had in over 25 years. Now, while America's credit rating was going down, our credit rating was actually improved 6 different times, our highest credit rating in 25 years as well. And you see other conservative Republican governors doing this all across this country because we know this. We cannot mortgage our children's future. We cannot tax, spend, borrow our way into prosperity. It's a lesson Washington, D.C. needs to learn from our states. Made other reforms as well. The bottom line is this. After 25 years of losing our kids, for the last 4 years in a row, for the first time in decades, we've had more people move into Louisiana rather than leave our state. Along with Texas, we're one of only 2 states in the South that has more jobs before this national recession started. Indeed, every month during this recession, we've outperformed the southern and national economies. We've created tens of thousands of jobs, attracted tens of billions of dollars of capital investment despite the national recession. Indeed, under President Obama's leadership, you've seen median household income go down, median household worth go down to a 2-decade low in Louisiana. Per capita income's actually gone up over the last several years. We're now at our highest ranking. It's gone up since I've been governor by over $2,700. We're at our highest ranking in over 80 years compared to the rest of the country, showing the conservative principles actually work. I spent my last few minutes talking with you about the greatest challenge we have tackled. You know, I was reelected last year, the largest margin for an incumbent governor since we've changed to this new system of electing governors. A lot of people said it's a good time to coast. Good time to cut some ribbons. You cut taxes, cut spending. Why tackle new controversial challenges instead? This last session, we made our top priority education reform in the state of Louisiana. Why is that so important? You know, if you were in your 50s, growing up, America ranked #1 in education in the entire world. If you're in your 20s today, America ranks somewhere between number 14 and number 16, depending on how you measure it. Not quite a great chant. We're number 14. We're number 4. You know, not really what we're used to as Americans. This has profound implications for our economy. 70% of the companies that want to move or expand in Louisiana tell us one of their top 2 concerns is finding a skilled employer. It has profound implications for our healthcare costs. It has profound implications for our crime rates. It has profound implications for our quality of life and our national security. Look, I believe in my bones America is the greatest country in the history of the world, and we are blessed to live right here. But if we want to continue that American exceptionalism, we can't accept being number 14 or number 16 when it comes to competing with the rest of the world, not in this global economy. Now, it's not just about throwing more money at the problem. Since the 1970s, we have doubled per student what we spend on education in America, even adjusting for inflation. There's only one other country that spends more per capita, and that's Luxembourg, on their educational system. Indeed, in the state of Louisiana, we were spending $1 billion on failing schools. Yet you look at the results we're getting for all the money we're spending. In Louisiana, 44% of our schools were getting failing grades. A third of our kids were below grade level. $1 billion of state taxpayer dollars being spent on failing schools. And even worse, those children trapped with no hope of getting a great education. Now, I can tell you about many of the reforms we did. I want to just highlight 2 that I think are transformational and incredibly important. Number 1, it starts by saying we need a great teacher in every single classroom. Now, when you think about it, it's the most important thing we can do. Every one of us that's here can thank a great teacher who allowed us to excel. Maybe took a special interest in us, motivated us, was harder on us. But the reality is everybody says they're for great teachers, but when you look at our policies, we don't pay, hire, fire, compensate, reward our teachers based on excellence. You look at our tenure laws, you look at our compensation laws, you look at our certification laws, they're all geared towards how long a teacher's been breathing, how long they've been in the classroom, rather than how well they're doing. We changed that in Louisiana. We now tie in Louisiana. We've said if you want to earn tenure, you've got to be in the top 10%. You've got to be for 5 years. You've got to be one of the best teachers to really rank highly effective if you're going to get that. We've changed our hiring and firing and compensation policies, tying it to student achievement. Now, the unions came out and said, Governor, we have no problem with you evaluating teachers. Just don't tie it so closely to student achievement. Look, I'm going to the LSU Florida game this Saturday. That'd be like going to a football game and say, don't worry about the score at the end. It's all about student achievement. It's not about the adults in the room. It's about the kids in the room. That's what educational reform has to be about. Look, the studies show kids with better teachers will earn more when they grow up. They're less likely to become pregnant as teenagers, more likely to go to college. There's such a great correlation. It's one of the best things we can do. The second thing we've done in Louisiana. We've said instead of forcing the child to follow the dollars, we're going to allow the dollars to follow the child. Now, what does that mean? Some of those children will do great in traditional public schools. Some of those children will do great in charter schools, online programs, private schools, parochial schools, independent schools, technical colleges, technical schools. The point is this. There's no one-size-fits-all approach, and the parents know what is best for their child. Let's give them the flexibility to get the best education for their son and their daughter. Let's not try it. Teacher unions didn't like that either. They came out and said, well, Governor, parents don't have a clue when it comes to making decisions for their children. I had a meeting with a bunch of moms the next day at my house at the mansion. They told me this. They said, Governor, we make decisions for our children every day. We know their needs better than the bureaucrats at Baton Rouge or Washington, D.C. But that's what this debate is really about. When you boil down to it, it should be about empowering families so that every child gets a great education. It shouldn't be about a top-down approach that preserves power in the hands of the bureaucrats. Now, in Louisiana, I'll just give you one example of the effects of some of these reforms. Post-Katrina, we rebuilt the New Orleans public school system. My predecessor and many before me, and we've continued and built on those reforms. New Orleans today, 80% of the kids in New Orleans today now go to charter schools. The percentage of kids reading and doing math on grade level has doubled in the last 5 years. We did a scholarship program where the dollars followed the child in New Orleans to private, parochial, and other schools. We spent thousands of dollars less per student and got better academic results. What this shows is that these reforms can and do work. It's not about throwing more money at the same old system. It's about changing the way we educate our children so they truly get it. Now, the reason I wrap up with educational reform is that this election certainly is about the incompetence of President Obama and his last 4 years in the White House and the inability to turn this economy around, but it's also more than that. It's also about two very different views of America, the role of government, the role of taxes and spending. President Obama's got what I view as almost like an Occupy Wall Street perspective. It really is about demonizing those who have been successful. It's about talking about equality of outcomes. It's about redistribution of wealth. And the reality is this. In America, we believe in equal opportunity. We believe our best days are ahead of us. We believe in America, you're not entitled to your neighbor's property. His house is above, his car. But what we do believe is this, that in America, every child, every American has the right, has the opportunity, should have the chance to get a great education and then pursue their dreams and do even better than their parents have done. We believe in America. The circumstances of your birth, your zip code, your race, your gender, your parents' wealth should not determine your outcome as an adult. If you're willing to work hard, if you get a great education, you should be able to do even better than anybody in your family before you. That's in part what makes it such a great country. And that's why educational reform is so important. To unlock the American potential, to give that American dream to all of our children, we need to make sure they've got those choices to pursue their dreams. But it starts with a great education so they can compete in this economy. So this election is indeed very important. We can't afford another 4 more years of failed Obama policies. $1 trillion a year of debt, unemployment above 8% for 43 straight months, but it's more than that. We need to put Governor Romney and Paul Ryan in the White House so that we preserve the American dream for our children and great-grandchildren, and we continue to live in the greatest country that